This is a short lesson to annotate the summary for writing equations to model relationships part 2. So I'm going to get rid of that. And so you want to open up your book to the orange page called summary in to unit 2, lesson 3. Sometimes the relationship between quantities is easy to see. For instance, we know what the perimeter for a square is always 4 times the side length of the square. So if P represents perimeter and S represents the side length, then the relationship between the two measures can be expressed as P equals 4S, or P or S divided by P, S equals P divided by 4. So let's highlight that. Okay. Other times, the relationship between two quantities might take a bit of work to figure out by doing the calculation several times or looking at a pattern. Here, in this one, let's highlight it because you will have to look for a pattern. That's what this whole lesson is about. There's a pattern to figuring out what the answer could be. So here in this chart, a plane departed from New Orleans and is heading to San Diego. The table shows its distance from New Orleans as x, so that's this, and its distance from San Diego as y. So what is the relationship between the two distances? Do you see any patterns in how each quantity is changing? Can you find out what the missing values are? So when we are 100 miles away from San Diego, when we are 100 miles away from New Orleans, we are in actuality 1,500 miles away from San Diego. So when we are 300 miles away from New Orleans, we are 1,300 miles from San Diego. When we're 500, we're 1,100 away from San Diego. So this one is increasing by 2. I'm betting that this is 700. See if it won't let me annotate there. Okay. So what is the relationship between the two distances? Do you see any patterns? Can you figure out the missing values? I'm guessing that's 7. And then here, if it's 1,400, which is still less than this, I would guess that maybe if we're 1,400, maybe we're 0 miles away from, or maybe 5 or 6 miles away, or whatever the difference is between 1,500, 50 miles away. So I might want to put 50 right there. Notice that every time the distance from New Orleans increases by some number of miles, the distance from San Diego decreases by the same number of miles. And the sum of the two values is always 1,600. Let's highlight that. The relationship can be expressed in these. So maybe you want to circle these. It's not going to let me. So I'm going to highlight those. Circle them. Let's annotate circle. Here we go. All right. Then the next example is a company decides to donate $50,000 to a charity. It will select up to 20 charitable organizations as nominated by its employees. Each selected organization will receive an equal amount of the donation. What is the relationship between the selected organizations, N, and the dollar amounts each of them will receive, D? Do you notice a pattern here? So if 5 are selected, each one receives 10,000. If 10, each one receives 5,000. If 20, each one receives 2,500. You notice a pattern? 50,000 divided by 5 is 10,000. 5,000 is 50,000 divided by 10. And 2,500 is 50,000 divided by 20. We can generalize the amount each organization receives is 50,000 divided by the number of selected organizations, R, and we should probably circle this. This won't let me. All right, so that's the end of this lesson on summarizing writing equations to model relationships. Put a big check on this page because you went over it with your teacher's help.